Welcome to episode 3 of Mina Narrates. I'm your host, Mina. Thanks for joining me in my library. This episode features Timothy Duran's Siberian Freezer. Now, let me whisper in your ears. It has been quite some time since I visited my hunting cabin in Siberia, but after the last series of storms that swept through this remote wilderness, I knew I must return to the cabin to examine damages. The journey is never easy, but my old age has not helped make this journey any easier. 7 days and 7 nights was what it would take by foot, but thankfully the roads were still clear on the path to the cabin. I made my way up to Siberia and drove through the wilderness to the cabin. Making my way through the trees as I would have in years past, something felt off. The snow had fallen greatly this year, but the path to the cabin remained clear. The trees nearby were almost clear of snow, but the most strange thing of all was the light I found coming from the cabin itself as I approached it. I have never left any lights on at the cabin before, especially months between visits. I must proceed with caution. There is no telling what could have been done in my absence. Dear God, what has been done in my cabin? The moment I opened the front door, I was greeted with a brightly illuminated room, courtesy of the fireplace, and upon the walls were disfigured faces and skins made out of human skins. The skins were fresh and had yet to dry out, as is the custom with other animal skins. The faces were what horrified me the most. Blood had dried around the edges of the mouth and immortalized their horrified expressions. What on earth had motivated someone to come to my cabin and do this? Amongst the defiled bodies and skins were statues made entirely of bone. Someone had used the bones and carved horrific structures displayed prominently along the walls of the main seating area. The cabin had been turned into a nightmare, one by someone who felt killing was an art form. I steeled my nerves and proceeded with a firearm in my hands, ready to kill the madman who had killed all of these people. Whoever had done this many times. I counted 30 skins all along the walls and roof of the cabin. They had taken their time and were careful with their craft. I was dealing with a true psychopath, and I could not be more careful in any time of my life if I was to survive. I made my way throughout the house, looking for the madman, keeping my senses peaked at every turn. I checked the refrigerator and found meat inside, meat I didn't recognize at first, until I saw the shape of it. The man who killed these people had preserved the meat. Despicable! But there were more horrors to explore. I proceeded throughout the cabin looking for any signs of human life, and proceeded upstairs to the bedroom and looked for any signs of people. I made my way to my bedroom and found discarded plates and bloodstains across the floor, and my bed was a mess. There were trails of meat all over the floor, never having made it to the trash. The horrors that laid out through my cabin were all but complete until a single thought crossed my mind. I had been through every part of this cabin except for the freezer. Most people would overlook such a thing, but in a case like this, I couldn't think of any place else the killer could be hiding the bodies. I had to make my way down to the freezer and see if the killer still had bodies in there. To little surprise, there were several bodies that were strung up on meat hooks, but the body that surprised me the most was of my nephew's Finn. He had hung himself inside of the meat locker by a rope and a hook, and kicked a chair out from underneath himself. I saw there was a note on the floor next to him. I picked it up and removed the light frost that covered it, and read what my nephew had left me. I had sent him up 3 weeks prior to check on the cabin, but he had never returned. I now understood why he was absent, but I knew not why there were dead bodies in my cabin. Determined to discover the true cause of the transformation of my cabin from a welcoming home to a house of horrors, I read the note.
Uncle Victor, I apologize first for all of this, but I couldn't contain my desire to hunt any more. There was a desire beyond me to hunt after the largest game I could find, but my desires eventually fell to the forbidden animal, humans. I have killed many bear, wolves, and large, strong beasts, but I had never killed a human. I questioned whether or not I could do such a thing, but found the desire to hunt too strong. I had become a shadow of my former self, and had killed so many people. I knew not where to hide the bodies, so I brought them to the cabin. The longer I kept them in the freezer to preserve them, the more I wanted to do something with them. Instead of going out to hunt, I started to consume the meat of the people to preserve myself out of respect to the people. As you told me before, we must eat what we hunt, lest we become less than what we kill. I dried out the skins and left them around the cabin to dry off for you, and set the bones up in manageable structures. I know it's not the prettiest display, but it was the best I could make. Over the last few weeks, I knew I had changed too much to return to normal society. I leave this note for you, knowing that you will be disappointed in me, and I regret my choices, but I know in the end you will forgive your only nephew. I apologize for my actions, and I shall pay for them in the afterlife. With love, Sven.
My own nephew had left me with such a grisly display. He murdered dozens of people, hung their skins in my living room, stacked bones in piles along the walls, left meat in my own bedroom, froze the bodies in the freezer, and hung himself. It was too much to take in all at once. I could not believe how much carnage my only nephew brought upon the people of Russia. The horrors he caused in my absence are what drove him to end his life, and part of me rejoices in that fact. But another part of me is somewhat proud of him. In all of my years, I have never hunted down as many animals in my life, and people are animals of sorts. I could not believe that he had orchestrated this series of murders. But I should expect nothing less of him. He was always a great hunter, but weak at heart. He took his life after committing the atrocities he reaped, but still tried to do right by him. Such a shame such a young man like Sven could not manage himself better. He should know that there is always a price to pay when hunting the highest prize. No prize ever hunted down will ever escape my Siberian freezer, and I shall preserve the legacy of Sven, although it will be a short one, as I am not a man to be outdone by a boy. The old saying I used to say to myself still rings true, I suppose. Once someone enters my Siberian freezer, they will stay forever, frozen in time, and their bodies are mine. Thank you for listening to Timothy Duran's Siberian Freezer and making it to the end of the video. Many thanks to Timothy for allowing me to narrate his story. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone who has been so welcoming, supportive, and helpful. Let me know what you think of these narrations when you like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell if you haven't already. Also, consider showing your appreciation with a 5-star rating if you are presented with a survey choice. Until we meet again, have a wonderful day or night, and be safe.